else? Everybody been passionate in their life? Desiring to serve the Lord? Be in His will. That's the question, right? For me too, right? For everybody. So only you can answer that. We're going to be starting our last lesson in this book, the last chapter. It's lesson 13. And we kind of talked about it a little bit briefly last week in closing. And the title of the lesson is The Best Life, Choosing the Path of Least Resistance. Oh wait, no, I misread that. Excuse me. Choosing the path of most resistance. Today's culture, people choose the path of least resistance. It's easy. There's not a lot of, there's no troubles or trials in it. But if you desire to be in God's will and desire to be in the best life is to choose the one that He has for us. Each one of us individually have a unique path. And we think about growth. We think about growing the muscle. We've been talking about working out or running. How do you get more strength? How does one get strength? By sitting on the couch. Right, Dan? Is that how we get strength? You build them muscles, or maybe the wrong muscles. Maybe your stomach will fold out in front of you or something like that, and your skin will fall off your face, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, you think about when you want to work out. Well, I mean, it'll sag. Not fall off your face. It'll sag. Okay. So, but if you want to get strength in anything, if you want to get strength in your body, what do? There's resistance, there's training, there's lifting weights or pulling bands, whatever it is that you do. But there's effort, there's resistance. And we think about serving the Lord, and we think about choosing the path of most resistance. How does one? Well, I would encourage each one of you to have patience, but I better be careful that you don't pray for patience. Because if you pray for patience, how are you going to get patience if you think of it as exercise? How are you going to get patience?
Tribulation.
Through tribulation, through trials. And we will all face those. We are all going to get those. But the point of the matter is, or the fact of the matter is, we need to look into the Lord, and we need to expect that there'll be some trials and some resistance, in which we can grow in. We can grow in faith in the Lord. We can grow in our trust in the Lord. We can trust Him. We can grow in His knowledge of His provision. So thinking of a few words here, we're going to look at define best. Who, in your mind, what is it, when you think of the best, what do you think? What does that mean to you? What thoughts arise?
Better than average.
Better than average. Okay, well, we take that. If it's better than average, that's good. That's good. Anything else? Anyone else?
Premium.
Premium. You pull up to the gas pump and you get the low octane, or you get the premium. You get the best, right? Then we think about, how about anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Nothing better.
Huh?
Nothing better.
Nothing better. Think about the best. When you got the best, you can't get anything better than that. So okay, well, according to Webster here, the most satisfactory, the most suitable or useful, the most desirable, surpassing all. Kind of goes with what John said. You can't get the best. Surpassing all others in excellence. And we think about that, the best life. Do you desire, do you wish for the best life? How are we going to obtain that? How can we obtain that? All right, so the best life. And then we haven't thought of choosing. Well, we think about life. What is life? The best life. What do we have? What do we have for the thought of life?
Time that we're here on earth.
The time that we're given here on earth. The best time that we're having, the best life here on earth. Now, the best life to some might be wealth, might be self-gain, might be, people to look highly upon them, being, looking up to them. But we think about the best life. In our best life, we ought to desire to be serving the Lord, to be found in His will, bringing honor and glory to Him. But as with the best life, choosing. All right, choosing. Ooh, now we can sit on a couch and expect our bodies to become fit, or we can choose to do a little work, have a little movement, have a little exercise, which will do us some good. But what is it to choose? What is it to choose? Make a decision or select. Yes, there you go. Choose or select. To pick out. To pick I got options here, but I'm going to pick out this one. Yeah, to choose, to pick it out, to select, or an option. So we think of choosing the best life, choosing the path. When I think about paths, there's lots of different paths. We've talked about paths in the past. We think about paths that aren't real well marked. Anybody ever have a path they had to follow that you couldn't find real well? I think I used the illustration once. I used to ride a motorbike. I used to enjoy riding the trails. And we found this old path, and it was so old. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with trail markers on trails when you're riding a stone wheel or dirt bike, but they have these little diamonds on the trees, and they have a 3 on them or a 2, so you know which path you're on. This path was so old and so undefined anymore that you know what plywood looks like, right? Well, usually there's layers in plywood, and instead of being orange, there was like 1/8 of an inch thick with 1 layer of the plywood left. It was a path in the past, but it wasn't used very often. It wasn't well defined, but we have the path of most resistance. What's a path?
The way.
It's a way. It's a way. Okay. Anybody else? It's a way or a course. That's the very first one that comes up in the dictionary. So Shell's ahead of me. She looked that one up. So what else? What else comes to your mind? Now it's a path and it's a way, but it's a way of what? Well,
Get somewhere.
it's a way of, it could be a way of many things. It could be a path to get somewhere, and we're thinking about the best life, choosing the path. So the path of life. The way something moves. Or you think about it, and we think about our lives. In our lives, we should have what? We should have a particular purpose. We should have, what is our purpose? What are we here on earth to do? We all know that is to serve the Lord and bring honor and glory to Him. And we think about, I looked it up just because, most. When we think about this thought of choosing a path of most resistance, and when you think about what does most mean?
Have to work for it.
Yeah, the word for it. There's a great expectations, or there's a great amount, great in amount. Has a thought of great in amount. And there's a lot you have to work for it, don't you? There's a lot of stuff going on, so you have to work for it. But great in amount, or degree. And then our last word to look at here is resistance. And what is resistance? Anybody?
Goes against something.
Goes to go against something? Yeah. All right. All right. Something goes against something. A force that tends to oppose. You go against something. Opposes what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. But the most resistance. To oppose or retard in motion. When you have resistance, when you want to lift weights, you have to force against it. It doesn't want to go, you know. So we have so our lesson here is going to be the thought here in our lesson 13. Our last lesson is the best life, choosing the path of most resistance. And our text verse will be found in 2 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 19. Let's take a look here at our verses. Let's read our text verse. All right, so let me see. Brother Elm, would you read that for us, please?
You said 19 or 9?
I'm sorry, it's 16:9.
Okay. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth. Show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him.
All right. Okay, so we think about that. Whose heart is perfect. Now, what do you think about that? Whose heart is perfect. Now, is anyone's heart really perfect? What is the thought behind this perfect towards him? What do we think it means?
Complete.
Complete. All right, complete. Any other thoughts?
Fixed.
Fixed. All right. Those are good. Those are good. And they fit in there. Any others? Perfect. Has the thought of at peace. You think about your heart is at peace towards God. Your heart, you're desiring to serve the Lord. You're desiring to be in His will. You're looking to be in His will. You're looking to please Him. It has the thought of at peace with loyalty too. Number one, we talked about in our lives and where you live our lives, we want to be in the number one slot. We think about how our hobbies and our things although they're not a sin in themselves, but if you place them above God, if you place them above the Lord in your service to Him, that's bad. But we have the thought of perfect towards Him, loyal to Him. Okay. So we're going to go through this. It'll be kind of a little bit of an overview of everything. I guess we'll take one moment here. And here's another we've talked about. I think we've had maybe one of 13 so far that we've all memorized the memory verse. But this is a good one that we can memorize. It's probably an easy one. But our memory verse, let's take a look at our memory verse for this. Maybe we can all stand up here next, when we finish this course, we can all stand up here and we can all recite this last memory verse. But it's Nahum chapter 1 verse 7 is our memory verse. Sister Jan, would you read that for us, please?
The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and He knoweth them that trust in Him.
All right, so this is a good verse. This is a good verse that we can use and apply to our lives, and all kinds of, when resistance comes and things come in our lives, we should be able to recite this verse and find peace in it. Looking to the Lord, knowing that if we trust in God, if we put our faith and trust in Him, that He'll help us through. He'll be with us. Okay. Now, as we go through this, and we can think about it, and as we go through this, and maybe be thinking back in your life. Maybe you might have something later on you want to share before we close and before we finish this chapter. Maybe you have an illustration or something. I know we've asked this question a few times, and not a lot of people have had anything to say. I've shared a few, and I think a few people have shared some things. But maybe you, as we've gone through this lesson, and you sense some resistance, and you find yourself trusting in the Lord, and you can maybe share how He blessed you through it, or how He encouraged you through it, or what you learned maybe through it. So if something comes up in your mind and you want to share it, feel free to share it. We'll have times I'll ask the question, and like I said, you can share something if you wish. But so I'd encourage that. It's good to talk about stuff because sometimes we don't say things, but we want to, but we don't say something, and maybe somebody else shares it, and then that'll kind of open up the door for other people. Someone's got to be the first one always, right? So so I'd encourage that as we go. So anyway, as we go through, we'll open up for maybe if you have a testimony you want to share or something you want to show that how the principles that we've gone through of this study and trusting the Lord, looking to Him, desiring to be in His will, something maybe you desire to share, and how maybe it impact your life and change your life. All right? And hopefully after we wrap up this lesson, hopefully each one of us will have the ability to embrace our lives, the lives that God has given us, and He has for each one of us, and have us be desiring to go through this life with a passion and a commitment. Now that's a big thing. We can have a passion, but you got to also have passion. But with passion, you have to be committed. Otherwise the passion kind of fizzles out. You need to be committed. All right. So as we go through our lesson here, we're going to we'd like to remember some things that what are some things that hold us back? We'll kind of maybe talk about them right now a little bit. What are some things that we talked about that would hold you back from living your best life? What are some things? Anybody remember what they might be? We could make it like Scrabble. I give you the first letter. It's an I, and the last one's a Y. I can tell you how many characters maybe it has in it too. That one's
Insecurity.
Pardon me?
Insecurity.
That would hold you back. That's one. There's 5 that we looked at in the very beginning. This will go back a little bit. Now, if someone is childish.
Immaturity.
Oh, she got it. I gave too good of a clue. Yes, one of them that we talked about a long time ago. And we've been talking about this lesson. I look back and it's kind of amazing how long we've actually been in this book. But does anybody have any idea how long it's been since we started this book?
I look back to see if I dated it, but I didn't.
I date all my stuff, and I think it was April 22 when we started this. So it's been a while. So if you don't remember, Mom, I'm okay with that, But these are just a refresher here. So we have the first one. Sister Jen got it. Was some lessons, some things that hold us back. Immaturity. We talked about the very beginning of this book. What did we talk about? The first lesson was what? Don't want to be 4 again, right? Don't want to grow up. Don't want to accept responsibility. Want to stay in the church. And then through our conversations that we just had, I kind of gave one of them away. I didn't mean to, but I did. So what's another one that can hold us back? It's another one that begins with an I. And it ends with a Y. That's a big one, right? But think about it. A lot of times, along with immaturity comes what?
Irresponsibility.
Yeah, Sister Jen, maybe you heard that one, but you got that one on your own, maybe. Who knows which one, but I kind of actually said one. But that you look back, well, she's looking back. This is an open book, so if you want to look back, go ahead. That's okay. I encourage that. But it's no such thing as a closed book test. I used to take I like the open book test better, but this is open book. So we have the thought of things that can hold us back. Immaturity can certainly hold us back. And then irresponsibility, being irresponsible, not being responsible, not being reliable. Okay, so what's another one? This one begins with an R.
Rebellion.
Rebellion. Good. That's a good one. Think about things that can hold you back in your life for serving the Lord, in your life being in God's will. Immaturity, irresponsibility, and rebellion. Rebellion can hold you back. Not giving in to God. Being difficult. We can think about that. Parents raising children. Think about sometimes they can get a little rebellious, and you have to work through that. But in our lives, we need to be careful that we don't become immature, irresponsible, or rebellious. All right, that'll hold you back. What else? And sometimes people want to do this willingly. Ignorance. Yeah, sometimes people want to be willingly ignorant. They don't really want to know, because if they know, guess what? Then they maybe they have some burden over it. Maybe they have some remorse over it. But in going through life, we don't want to be ignorant. And if you're ignorant, and then with another part of being ignorant, or just flat out making bad decisions, what's that one? Begins with an F. Folly. You think about ignorance and making bad decisions, bad choices, not caring, being unwise, being foolish, folly. So we've looked at these things, and we've been challenged to think about them and to be aware of them in our lives. If we want to pursue the rewards of God's plan for us in our life, what are the things that we ought to pursue in the plans in God's life? Anybody remember those? What are the things we ought to pursue? A life of. What else? Anybody? You can look in the book. Any thoughts? What are some things we ought to pursue? God has a plan for us in life. We ought to pursue them.
Pursue wisdom.
Yeah. Pursue. There was 3 of them, I believe. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 3. A life of significance. Very good. Yep. A life of significance. The great gifts of God. I think, 3 of them. There's a life of significance. The great gifts of God. We talked about how we think about going through life. We think about when you receive a gift. Sometimes it can be just a minor gift. Something can be something that have a lot of value to anybody. It doesn't have any. You couldn't sell it on the internet if you wanted to. But to you, it means very much because you got it from a spouse. You got it from your child. You got it from your grandparents, your dad, your mom. The greatest gifts. We think about the greatest gifts, and we think about what God has blessed us with, and where things come from God. And then in the end, we want to hear what? Well done, right? And in the end, we think about the rewards of a faithful steward. So we talked about the life of significance, the great gifts of God, and the rewards of a faithful steward. Okay, and then as we've kind of gone through this lesson, we've also studied some godly passions we ought to have. And what were the 3 passions? Those are more recent. What are the 3 passions that we studied that we ought to have in a life serving the Lord? Well, passion number one for passion for God, right? We ought to have a passion for God. And then a passion for God's perfect will. We think in our lives, how we go through life, we ought not desire the passion for our life, and God does bless us, but if we serve Him, He knows our needs, He'll grant us our needs, and He'll grant us. But we ought to have a passion for God, a passion for God's perfect will, and a passion to finish our course. And that's what we've been talking about. A passion to finish our course. And really, we've gone through our lesson, and there's a lot more that we haven't talked about. And it's hard to exhaust everything in God's Word. But hopefully we've gone through some things that have been a blessing to you, been a challenge to you that you brought to your attention. But as we go through our life, we ought to desire, and we ought to have a heart that's hungry to serve God, to find His purposes and His will in our life, and look to the rewards that He has promised for us. Okay. And as we talk about it, so as we close up on this last lesson, and again, the title of it, we know what it is, but it's the best life, choosing the path of most resistance. We talked about culture a lot in this study as we started out, and we talked about the way culture is, and what is culture like today? What is the culture of the world seek after today? Pardon me? Self. And is it really, is culture seeking after the path of most resistance? No, everything, and we think about our lives we live today, and we have it pretty good. You know, think of all the ease and think of all the least resistance. Piloting a dishwasher, you know, think about all the things, you know, there's just so many things that are to make our life easier, you know. Everything from the gadgets, the information that we have, everything that we have. Huh?
No, I just work smart, not hard.
Yeah, work smart, not hard. Yes, it is. There's times when that does come in handy, for sure. But ultimately, and there's nothing wrong with the desire to do things smart and to take them and not go through and create trouble for yourself. But ultimately, you know, when things get tough, what do we do? What's the first thing we do when trial or tribulation comes along in our life? I'm guilty of it. I do the same thing. What do we want?
Want to go away.
We want it to go away. You know, and we think about God puts something in our life, trial, some kind of something, and we just pray for it to go away. That's my first prayer, you know, and we need to think about it different. Maybe we need to be thinking about it more like, okay, Lord, here's where I'm at. What do you have for me? What can I do? What do I learn from this? How can I be a blessing to you through this? You know, least resistance. And we think about the trials and the things that come up in our lives, you know, we need to maybe look at them different. Maybe we ought to ask different questions, you know. Nothing wrong with praying and asking the Lord to remove it. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's more to that. Because what happens if He doesn't remove it? Which sometimes He's not going to remove it. So what happens if we set ourselves up for that thought of it didn't get removed? Well, didn't answer your prayer, right? Well, hopefully you accept the fact that He didn't answer your prayer, but maybe what does Satan do at that point?
Cast doubt in our minds.
Ooh, then Satan turns around and he starts casting doubt in our minds. And we think about desiring the perfect will of God. Well, what is our will? Our will probably doesn't line up with what God's will is. We ought to be desiring ultimately to seek God's will. In that, whatever that challenge might be.
And technically, He did answer our prayer.
He did answer.
He just said no.
He just said no. And you think about it, as parents, have you ever said no to your kid? I sure hope so. So as parents, sometimes the best thing is no. You know, a child might ask for something. Casey, you wanted your braces off. Casey wanted her braces off. She even said she'd pay for it at what, 13 years old or whatever it was. But you wouldn't have had straight teeth. And it was a trial, and it was trying, it was troublesome.
And the retainer.
Yeah, and the
Really wanted
retainer.
out.
She wanted the retainer out. But now she has a nice, pretty smile, nice straight teeth. And there was some things that went bad. But As parents, we said, no, we have to go through this. We'll get through it. You know, Mom helped you through it. You know, we encouraged you through it. You made it. And you learned, and you'll be able to be a blessing to someone else, you know, since you've gone through it and talked to them and what to expect, you know. But as we go through our
Sometimes
lives,
you didn't let me.
Huh?
I'm so glad you didn't let me. At the time, I
Yeah, so, and those are just all examples of things that we can learn in our lives that you can even share them. Those are testimonies that you can share that be an encouragement to other people. I'm not the only one that had that happen to me. Because sometimes we'll be quiet. We don't say anything. We got the same ideas, the same things that happen in our lives that, you know, that someone else might share. But it can be encouraging. So, does anybody have one? As a parent, you can even be one as a parent that maybe you told your, or maybe your folks told you no. Maybe you have an illustration of where your folks told you no. My dad told me not to buy a car. I wanted this car really bad, but my dad told me not to buy it, and he gave me several reasons not to, and I listened to him, and it was probably the best thing I probably could have done. But it's just, you know, when God, he's like we have our earthly parents and earthly father, and we have our heavenly Father, and He cares for us even more. He created us, and He cares for us the same way. So as we go through this, we think about the culture and think about taking the path of least resistance. We need to be like those salmon. What do those salmon do in the fall of the year? They swim upstream. We need to be like the salmon in the fall that swim upstream. In this world we live in today, if we're swimming upstream and seeking the path of most resistance, people are going to look at us and say, what are you doing? They're going to think we're the odd duck, all right? But we don't really, it doesn't matter what people think, right? It doesn't matter what man thinks. I know we ought to do, all we do is do it unto the Lord. And what matters is what God thinks. What matters is how we are reacting and how we are acting according to what God would have us to do. So as we need to swim upstream a little bit on this one, and we need to embrace our lives, seize the day, seize the times that we have, and live passionately God's purpose. Whatever God has for you in your life, you have to find that. And when you're in it, you will know it. You'll have peace. You'll have that peace that we talked about. Not that, and we had what was the word again? Perfect living, whose heart is, let's see here, on behalf of them whose heart is perfect towards Him. You are living with a life that is, let me find it again, having the thought here, when your heart is at peace with God, when you have that confidence that you're being loyal to God, you will be able to get through things, and you'll have a peace, you'll have a settledness, and you'll be good. So again, the path of most resistance will lead to our best life. Oh, I'm not sure I can even start this next part. I don't have enough time. All right. Does anybody remember, we'll kind of talk about this a little bit. Does anybody remember when we first started this lesson? When we first started our lesson, what was the first illustration the author used in this book? Anybody have a remember? They had an account of, huh?
Something about.
Is it a snake?
Oh, yeah, it was a snake. We think about our lives. We think about the lives to live through. We think about finishing the course, finishing our course. We think about that snake. Did he finish his course? What happened to that snake?
You got fried.
He got fried. He sat there, and and the author of the book, or the author of the book, he was enjoying it. Now, I'm not a snake fan myself, but you think about this snake. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a purpose. He was just trying to scamper across this big hot parking lot without putting much thought into it. And by the time he got across this big parking lot, the sun was baking down on the asphalt, and the asphalt was very hot. He didn't make it. And as God's people, if we don't put our thought into it, and if we're not into God's Word, and if we're not following the leadership of the Holy Spirit, we're going to find ourselves in that same predicament. We won't make it. We'll end up being frustrated. We'll end up, what's the word we use that if one becomes what? If you kind of start to give up a little bit, what's that word in the Bible that the Bible uses?
Faint.
What? Faint or weary? Yeah, faint and weary. We don't want to become faint and weary. We want to be able to continue on, being consistent. I didn't say inconsistent, I said we want to be consistent, right? All right. As we go through our life and we think about us swimming upstream, what does that ultimately look like to the people around us, in culture, in the world around us? What does that look like? Does it have an impact? Does it have an impact if we are living for God, swimming against the streams and going against the flow? What does that look like to people around us? Some might think they're crazy. Some might think, there's something wrong with them, But what might it do?
I'd like to wonder why.
Might cause one to wonder. We talked about there's different people in the Bible, in Proverbs, right? We talked about the fool, right? And the fool does what? But the one, I can't remember which one it was. I'm trying to find out. It's kind of flat off the top of my head. But there's one that is, that could go either way. There's one that, might stay a fool, and there's one that might have some curiosity. There's one that, you might be able to talk to them, and they might, if the Lord chooses, it might open their eyes. And you think about our lives, and our lives being an example. We think about being a lighthouse. And we think about, what does that lighthouse do?
Shines in the darkness.
A lighthouse shines in the dark. It goes against darkness. It goes against, and it's not only going against darkness, it's what? It's showing a way, right? Now, lighthouse is showing a way, and a way to what? We talked about a path, and we think about what path is that? It's trying to show a way of safety, right? And we think about in our lives, as we're swimming upstream and going against culture, there's one that might look at us, and they might even think we're real goofy, but has anybody ever had anybody that would come up to you and ask you for advice? Even though they might have maybe even made fun of you a little bit. Has anybody ever had that? Maybe they think we're a little bit crazy, but all of a sudden they find themselves in a predicament. And all of a sudden they're kind of wondering. They come up to you and talk to you and ask for questions maybe. Now it doesn't mean they're going to listen to you. It doesn't mean they're going to take your advice. But they made an impact. It made an impression in their minds. And it's an opportunity that the Lord might give you to share the gospel with one, to talk to one, create a friendship with one. But anyway, those are just thoughts. Any other thoughts?
When Ms. Hop said what's holding us back, and she said insecurity, it wasn't on the list, but that's probably a really big one in a lot of people's lives, is they're insecure of that rejection. Insecure of what will, be if we stand firm, so. That's just a good one.
Yeah, because when one's insecure, they're doubtful, they don't have a lot of faith, maybe themselves or whatever, what they believe. We need to be secure. We need to know what we believe, confident what we believe. Yeah, good point. All right. So next week we're going to start out. Have an illustration, and I just did not have enough time to get through it. So next week we'll start out with the illustration that the author used of a situation here. And with that, we'll close in prayer. I'd like to ask Brother Chris, would you be so kind as to dismiss us in prayer, please?